Hello people, welcome to part 16, I think. I just counted it out and I've completely forgotten already. Hang on, it's 16 or 17. Okay, Patreon videos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, part 16. Welcome to part 16. Sorry, I was just getting rid of the window off my screen so I can see all my reference photos. Welcome to part 16 of this Patreon exclusive tutorial series for The Man With No Name. Last time we did some colour on the eyes, some shading on the eyes. We did a bit of extra shading around the eyes. We did the eyebrows, or we did the first few layers of the eyebrows. We did the shading of the side of the hairline. We started the shading of that. Let's start on the stubble now. So I will bring it in to about there, I think. Yeah, that's good enough. So I'll be holding the thing there. That works. Music playing, counter is going up. Oh, hang on, let me get me in the corner of the screen. Hello. Counter is counting up, which means it's recording, and the microphone is on. Right, let's do this. I will want some, or access to some tanned flesh, and maybe some chocolate brown and leather brown, maybe some grey, maybe some blue grey. He's not got really stubble, but I suppose it doesn't hurt. Okay, so those colours will do. Those colours can go away for now. So if I get a fairly big brush, something like that, let's open the flow enhancer, get the water out. You know what, I will start with blue grey. I was going to go straight in and mix my own colour consisting of tan flesh and a bit of grey and a bit of brown and a bit of something else. I will still do that, but I will go in with a thin layer of blue grey just because it is what I normally use for stubble, and even though this isn't short stubble, it will allow me to get some of the bits around the edges. So I've just mixed a very thin watered down blue grey, and I'm just gonna, let me see how this goes on. Okay, so it's very thin, so it's not going to be any good for down here. This is going to be brown and dark brown, but it will let me do the bits up here where it blends into the skin. Now let me just see, that goes from there down to there and up to there and up to the middle of his ear, I think. Okay, so about there and then up to sort of there, and then I'm just going to blend it down, and it doesn't matter what happens further down here because it's going to be, I just flicked water on myself, because that's going to be covered in browns and stuff. So, but up here I will blend that. I just got most of the colour off and then I'm just blending it upwards. That's cool. So thin layer, I mean he's got a hard sculpted edge on here, especially on this side, which is sort of unfortunate, but I can deal with that. He's got a hard sculpted edge the wrong way. Unfortunately, his stubble has been pushed further in to his face, which is physically impossible. Excuse me. So yeah, on here, the stubble part of his face is deeper into his face than his skin, which physically impossible, but I will be able to go around that with paint, or I'll be able to hide it with paint because I'm not resculpting it. But above that line, I've just done blue-grey. Where's that bloody focus down here? Blue-grey to give like the appearance that I normally get with when I'm doing, you know, stubble or 5 o'clock shadow, whatever you want to call it. But it's just the bit where it's at the top of the beard before it sort of goes down and turns into stubble and the actual beard. So do that, wipe most of it off, and then just blend what's there upwards a bit. Let's get some of that same colour. And now, we talked about this in a previous video, the stubble or the beard has been sculpted down to the jawline, and it should come, if you're going to sculpt any of the hairs, then you should sculpt all of the hairs, but that basically the line should come down here and around here onto his chin and then fade down. Now most of that is going to be browns and greys and stuff, but what I'm going to do just underneath it all, I'm just going to do random dabs for this, and then we'll blend it in a bit. I'm just going to put the blue-grey down, do the same on the other side, so that comes from there, goes down and around and down towards there, and then I can just go dab 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 dab. Okay, wipe most of it off, and then just by dabbing blend those edges so they fade. And then when we have brown colours, various layers of light and dark brown on top of that, sort of blending into that edge, those blue bits will give a good effect of just being the very edges of the beardy bit. Very edges. Just looking at some of my reference pictures here. Just going to get some water, get rid of some of that, and just thin down those edges a little bit more, and then thin it down across his Adam's apple. Add a little bit more back under there. Okay. So that'll do for the blue-grey, because it's just the edges really that does. Get rid of that paint off the brush. Right, so now let me get some. There will be some chocolate brown, there will be some umber, there will be some tanned flesh, maybe some other colours eventually, but this can do to start with. In fact, it might just be chocolate and flesh to start with. I'm using the flesh, and that might have been too much there, because this isn't a flat brown colour, this is the edges, and this is going to be what's underneath the stubble. I'm going to be painting that on in multiple layers of multiple washes, and also painting on individual hairs, but underneath all that I want the skin to be shadowed slightly, because it is underneath something. It's like the ground under a forest type thing, but quite subtle, and then we build it up darker as the lower it goes. But I think to start with, that's probably okay. Let's get a bit more chocolate in there, and then we'll water it down. Now I'm going to chuck a load of water at the bottom just to give us a even thinner starting off point. Okay, get rid of the excess off the brush. Okay, right. Dry my fingers. Now, I'll do it with this brush again because it's got a, where am I? There. It's got a decent point to it, and I can control it whilst doing quite a wide area. So let's just get rid of some of the rest because I don't want to jump in too dark at the beginning. So that starts there. Now when I'm doing this, I am paying attention to the shape of his particular stubble, which, like I've mentioned before, everyone's stubble is a different shape. So I'm just going to go down with all of that, and let's see. Okay. Because what some people's does, and his does, and I think Harrison Ford's does as well, the stubble comes down here and it does a few different things, and it goes up a bit and then drops down before going back up on that bit that joins up to the moustache. But there's a drop down there, and this bit is raised up. In fact, let's make that a little bit higher and a bit bigger, because this is all thin stubbly bits. The brown is going to be the majority of what we see and what we pay attention to. But it is important how the edges finish, and as I know from the times when I have painted Indiana Jones or whoever, if you get the shape of the stubble or the shape of the beard wrong, it incredibly doesn't look like the person anymore. It's one of those things that you can tell who it's going to be, and a lot of people might not notice that something is wrong, but getting the shape of the stubble line or the parts of the beard that are darker than others, everyone has their own patterns on their faces, and if you get that right, it's the kind of detail that if you pay attention to it, it will make a big difference in how much it looks like the person. So it's one of those things that is totally worth paying attention to. So just taking this around here, bit sort of randomly, around here, and then oh, excuse me. Let's get rid of some of that excess colour and dab this around and blend it in. Now, like I said, it's subtle, but you can see it's there. But when the darker part of the beard sort of, it's more this colour, but just not as dark. I mean, on some of the films, on different parts of the film it is, but it basically comes down here, fades down into the beard, and it's darker down in the bottom half. And then that dark part comes around and then fades off again, but it is, you know, there's visible hair. So once all that's on, you won't really even see this stuff that I've put underneath it, but it'll be there. Okay, so with that, oh, I just realised another little bit that I didn't do. Let's see, so it goes across there, goes across there, so the little bit under the chin. Sort of goes beyond the size of the bit that's been sculpted, especially with these thin bits. And I'm going to take that top bit there a little bit higher. Oh, we didn't do the moustache at all, did we? So goes around like that, goes around like that. Well, it's sort of right. Okay, so take it up there. I'm at the moment just following the lines of the sculpted moustache, and any bits where I feel it needs to be, you know, a slight change in shape, I'll do that afterwards when I'm adding details. But for now, this will do as a guideline. So it goes across to there and down to there. Especially when I'm just doing these thin bits, it's going to be fine and won't make too much of a difference to the shape. When I'm doing the dog a bit, then that will be important to follow the shape on the actual thing as opposed to the sculpt, even though the sculpt is probably mostly right, because there are so many times when I'm having to fix the shape of beards or moustaches or stubble or whatever. I just automatically go by the pictures of the the screenshots and stuff, as opposed to the thing that I'm painting. I'm just taking that corner beyond the level of the sculpt, just because I can see when he's pulling that face, when he's got a cigar in his mouth, those edges go higher and up around the sides. On those corners. Now when he's fully relaxed, he may well, the stubble may come down and go down like that, the way it's been sculpted, but when he's, like, his top lip is doing that sort of grimacing in the sun thing and he's got a cigar, this bit comes up and over and then goes out beyond the side. Okay, so hello, I'm recording. My wife's just come home from work. So that is basically the shape of the bottom layer of the stubble. Now you can see on bits there it looks quite harsh, but once the rest of the beard is taken up to that, you won't hardly even notice that. So if I get some, what I can do now is very lightly, because I want to see what the beard that's been sculpted on there, I want to see what the appearance of those lines that have been sculpted are. So I'm going to put a thin bluey grey browny wash onto it, not as dark as the actual beard, but it's got colour in it, so when it soaks into those lines you will see it. And then what I'll do is I'll let it dry and we can see what it sort of looks like. So you see the way, if I paint that on those lines, you can see the way it soaks in and it looks beardish. It's not a word, but you know what I mean. I want to do that. I've got to be careful here because this liquid is so thin, I don't want it running everywhere. But I want to do that, see what it looks like with a relatively thin layer, and then I will know from there on how to proceed. Do I build up you know, on those layers? Do I ignore them completely and do my own thing? But I sort of need to know, because they are sculpted there and they are quite strong. So I'm putting on a relatively thin but dark wash, and that will just soak into those sculpted lines, which will go dark. Now it's actually the opposite of what we need, because it's supposed to be the raised up parts that are dark because they're the hairs. But on most sculpted things, what they do is they sculpt lines into the thing that are supposed to be the hairs, and when you put a wash over it, you just sort of see a load of lines and your brain goes, okay, that's a beard, even though you're sort of seeing an inverse beard, because instead of the raised up beard bits being the dark bits, it's actually the bits that are sculpted into the skin that end up being dark. It's almost like what should be shadows, but they're not. So you end up doing it the wrong way around, but it's there, so I need to know how to deal with it. So I'm just going to, all over where those sculpted bits are, put this thin wash on. And I'm just going to put on a little bit extra around the bottom, because it is darker around the bottom. I'm going to take some extra up into the hair so we get that sort of blending down into it. Now this is sort of difficult to make these bits darker and whatever while it's still wet, because it just blends in everywhere. But we get some of the effect, and then once it's dry we can go on with a second layer. I'm just going to wipe off most of that and see if I can blend down these edges a bit. Now when I come to do it properly, these blending down bits won't just be done by spreading around paint, they'll be done with their own colours, and blended in with the skin colour, you know, going backwards and reverse. Because at the moment, if I lift up the focus so you can see it, where's the focus? Oh, I'm focusing the wrong camera. The settings are all on one page and you have to change cameras if you want to. There you go. So you can see the lines that are sculpted on there. So what I'm doing is putting, I've done the bluey grey bit, I've done the brown bit, and I'm doing this dark bit. I'm going to let that dry. It's not the right final colour or anything like that, but I need to let that dry to see how this looks. How does it sit? How does it look in terms of the shape of it? How does it look in terms of, you know, how the paint sits in it? And then I'll know how to deal with it, whether to just ignore those lines and paint over it and sort of pretend that they don't exist and use them, but not, you know, be held to where they are. Or if I do it and think, okay, that looks okay, we can just sort of add to that. Then that's how we'll go. But then once we start doing that, we will be adding more detail to, like, the actual, or paying more attention, I should say, to the actual shape of things on the reference pictures on Clint Eastwood himself. Oh, I've just dropped a load of water on the... Let's just soak that up. Water flicked off my brush. We'll pay more attention to Clint Eastwood and the shape of the stubble and the shape of the hairs, and we'll go in with more washes like that, but sort of small brush ones instead of the big brush, and we will darken areas and lighten areas and add textures and dark browns and chocolate browns and leather browns and bits of grey, bits of reflections, maybe the sun's reflecting on the beard in bits. We'll do all of that and then paint in individual hairs on top where we need that, once we've got the underlying tone and colour and shape and everything. But for now, this is just about letting me see how does it all sit and how am I going to work with this in the best way. Okay, so where's the... Oh, God. See, already, even though it's not looking like anything yet and things are in the wrong place and the wrong colour and all the rest of it, already, we just need that beard to be on. And when that's done right and not looking like this, that will add a lot. And then obviously when we've got the eyes being filled in and correct, and the eyebrows and everything else. Cool. Sorry, there's just a little bit of something stuck to part of the hair there. I was just trying to figure out what it was. Oh, there you go. Gone. Right, now I don't want to accidentally touch this and smudge anything up, so I'm going to put this down for now, and we'll call it that. This can be a short video. It's over half an hour. I mean, it's short compared to all my other videos. They should probably be half an hour long anyway. But I'll put this down for now, let this dry, and then we'll come back on the next video. My wife is hoovering up downstairs, so if you can't hear me, that's why. Bring the microphone closer. So we'll let that dry. Let me switch back to the main camera. Where's my cursor gone? I've lost my cursor. There you go. So we'll let that dry. We'll come back on the next video and we'll have a look at how that looks when it's dry, because the shade will be slightly different when it's dry. It'll probably be a little bit darker, but I want to see how it sits, and I don't want to accidentally smudge anything, so I don't want to work on the head until that's dry. This is the one downside of doing these videos. Normally I would be quite happy to put that to one side and just leave it for a while and then come straight back to it, but I can't when I'm doing a video, and I can't pause the video because I can't pause the video, so I'd have to edit it out, and I don't want to do that because I just want to be able to upload these when they're done. But it's fine. Half an hour video is fine. I don't want to put you all in comas every time I do a video. So that's that. My camera, it's gone dark again, hasn't it? The sun's gone back in. I know what happens. The sun comes round that front of the house at a certain time each day. Makes my camera go too bright. I change the settings and then the sun goes down in the evening. It's only like an hour. So camera number 1 and main camera settings. That's it. Right, so we will be done for now. Thanks for keeping me company. We didn't do too much on that one. I mean, we did a few things, but important progress, stuff that needs to be done before we can go, okay, now let's take it to other detail levels. Had that beard not been sculpted on and I was just doing it all with paint, then I would have gone about it a different way and just built up the layers slowly from the start without break, really. But because of those lines, I want to see how they look and then how to deal with them, how to go over them or use them or hide them or whatever. So that's that. I will see you next time. Look after yourselves, have a good day, look after everyone around you. I'll see you on the next video. Take care, guys.